On the morning of October 14, Russian forces attacked a United Nations humanitarian convoy in the Belozersk community of the Kherson region. This was reported by Oleksandr Prokudin, chairman of the Kherson Regional Military Administration. The official said the Russians used drones and artillery to attack 4 UN trucks. The trucks were delivering food and humanitarian aid to populations in frontline areas. The attack resulted in one truck catching fire and a second being damaged, but there were no casualties among the aid workers. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha described the incident as a gross violation of international law. Another brutal violation of international law that demonstrates Russia's complete disregard for civilian life and its international obligations, he noted. The minister called on UN member states to condemn the attack on humanitarian workers and increase pressure on Russia. The UN also responded strongly. The organization's website noted that its humanitarian coordinator in Ukraine, Matthias Schmail, condemned the attacks on UN vehicles in the Kherson region. According to the organization, the aid delivery mission was carried out by humanitarian workers, including from the World Health Organization and the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The shelling began while humanitarian workers were on site. Later, while unloading supplies, 2 trucks marked with World Food Programme markings were hit by FPV drones. The attack damaged both trucks and set them on fire. No humanitarian workers were injured. Such attacks are completely unacceptable. Humanitarian workers are protected by international humanitarian law and should not be targeted. Civilians in frontline communities rely on humanitarian aid, and humanitarian workers must be able to safely deliver life-saving support to them, the UN spoke out decisively. The organization also emphasized the seriousness of the violation. The deliberate targeting of humanitarian workers and humanitarian facilities and property is a grave violation of international humanitarian law and may constitute a war crime. Recall, Russian Z channels published a video of a drone strike on a UN convoy. The footage appeared on the Telegram channel, From Mariupol to the Carpathians, which is linked to Russian drone operators in the Kherson region. The footage shows one of the drones striking a truck, which then starts a fire. The Telegram channel's authors claim the strike targeted a vehicle carrying dual-use cargo. Reconnaissance detected the movement of dual-use vehicles in time, and within minutes, FPV drone crews from the Dnipro Guards were operating against the convoy. As soon as the lead and rearmost vehicles were destroyed, artillery from the 18th Joint Army of the Dnipro Guards began firing, the Post reads. From Mariupol to the Carpathians reports that the convoy was struck near the village of Belozersk. Any vehicle movement will be considered a legitimate target. All critical infrastructure is a legitimate target, reads another post accompanying the video of the strike.
Russian state television has aired outspoken criticism of the Kremlin's pivot to the east, which it portrays as a strategic success. On the talk show Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, State Duma Deputy Alexander Babakov stated that Russia's pro-Chinese economic stance has made it vulnerable and dependent. According to Babakov, Chinese investors receive preferential terms in Russia, while domestic businesses face loans with exorbitant interest rates. A foreign investor from China comes and invests in a sausage production plant. Can he do that? He can. What will he do? He'll exchange his yuan for rubles at 1 to 2% per annum and invest them in the plant. We'll be happy. For what? The plant is owned by the Chinese. The profits and dividends go to China, and we as a country are responsible for the return on their investment, the indignant deputy declared. Such schemes effectively deprive Russia of economic independence because income goes abroad and the benefits for the state are minimal. And then some Ivanov comes to the government and says, listen, why such a long road? Let me build a sausage factory. And they tell him, only at 21%, and you can say thank you. We can give it at 25%. And in the end, the factory won't exist. Babakov noted. He called this practice discriminatory against Russian entrepreneurs and questioned the very logic of the Kremlin's investment policy. Is this our investment policy? We expect this kind of investor? Why do we discriminate against our own investors? We don't need this, the deputy protested. Solovyov's unexpected statement on air surprised even the regulars of the propaganda show. Direct criticism of the pro-Chinese policy, which the Kremlin presents as a multi-vector partnership, is increasingly heard even from rabid Z patriots. Babakov essentially voiced what many in Russia have been saying quietly. Under the guise of strategic rapprochement with Beijing, the country is losing its economic sovereignty. Chinese companies are receiving Russian resources, infrastructure, and cheap loans, while Russian businesses are suffocating under the weight of interest rates and restrictions. A senior NATO official told reporters in Brussels that China remains a linchpin in sustaining Russia's defense industry, a relationship NATO says has become a decisive factor, enabling Moscow to wage the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian defense outlet Militani reported. According to the official, roughly 80% of the critical electronic components used in Russian drones and other modern systems are manufactured in China. He also said Beijing has supplied Russia with more than $20 billion in production tools, components and consumables since 2023. Shipments that, in NATO's assessment, have materially expanded Moscow's ability to produce tanks, armored vehicles, and missiles. About 80% of critical electronic components used in Russian drones and other modern equipment are made in China. Since 2023, Russia has purchased more than $20 billion in manufacturing tools, components, and consumables, the official said. NATO officials described Beijing's assistance as multifaceted. Direct export of components and equipment, production by Chinese subsidiaries of Western firms, and re-exports routed through third countries. Those channels, the alliance says, have allowed Russia to scale production despite sanctions and supply chain hurdles. The NATO official also accused China of aiding Moscow through non-kinetic means, including disinformation and cyber operations directed at alliance members.